Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks to Joe for, as usual, outstanding briefing of the seriousness of the problem. When I was asked to be here, I was delighted. My family's lived in Virginia for 300 years. I was born in Farmville, Virginia, Prince Edward County, down the way. Own sort of a complex history. It bears on this case because in it are very powerful forces of social interaction. I guess when I read about what you were trying to do, I went ahead and took the liberty to write a memo to the group about the case, about a dimension of the case that's not in the material at all. And is in essence my answer, and rather than go through the whole thing, I just wrote it up and gave it to you. It's in your folder. I'm going to ask you to take it out, and I want you to turn to page 2, and I want you to go to the bottom of page 2, because this is an executive of a major U.S. company calling me and asking for my help on his company's decision-making with respect to exactly the problem that Joe Minerick talked about a while ago. He was calling about asking for help with his executive committee after they had digested Moody's mid-April this year report that the U.S. could lose its AAA rating and that the fiscal adjustments were so large that they could test social cohesion. Okay. This gentleman was asking for my help because this is what my company does. We advise people on handling fiscal crisis. The clients are mainly asset managers. They manage in excess of $500 billion. They're, for the most part, offshore investors. They want to know how are they going to maximize return, preserve value, while the U.S., in their minds, almost certainly goes through a historic scale fiscal crisis. They look at the numbers that Joe went through, and they are forecasters, projectors. They're not economists. They're asset managers. They're very realistic. They all come from countries with long and difficult histories of the last 50 years or so. They know things can go wrong, and they are amazed that in the United States, nobody is looking at the numbers that Joe put forward and is accepting them with such equanimity. So he asked me, what do we do about it? And I told him after we had discussed his problem that I would not be able to help him, that work that I'm involved in, not involved in this kind of thing, but work that I'm involved in elsewhere, is focused on making him wanting to stay in the United States. What he wanted to do was to reduce the footprint of his company so he could minimize his exposure to increases in taxes and decreases in public spending of significant scale. It's large enough to test social cohesion. He wanted to get out of the United States, if possible. Now, I'm at the, basically, I think, at the limit of my time, and that's basically all I want to say is I want you to read this, because what it shows is after you go through a basic sort of back-of-the-envelope calculation, the present value of the fiscal adjustment costs which should be put on, say, Exxon's or Microsoft's or Walmart's balance sheet is enough to significantly reduce their book net worth. What this memo is about is a process called fiscal adjustment cost discounting, which I can tell you for a fact is already being engaged in and has been for the last year or so by major, mainly non-U.S. investors. They're looking at companies and asking, is Pyrex a company that is dependent? Is Pyrex a product that is dependent on the current pattern of taxing and spending in the United States? And if it is, It's a product that's got a lot of headwinds it has to fly against. It's got a strong current it has to swim against. Because taxes are going to go up, the amount of money that's available to sell Walmart customers to spend is going to go down, spending is going to go down, federal court system processing is going to slow, protection of intellectual property is going to deteriorate, transportation is going to deteriorate just because roads are not going to be maintained like they have been in the decades past. Breakage costs and all those related expenses associated with transportation are going to go up. When you look at Pyrex from that standpoint, which you must, because here's the bottom line. As this gentleman told me, this Moody's report tells me that I, as an executive, are on notice that if I do not take actions to protect my stockholder value from the coming fiscal storm, I probably am exposed to stockholder derivative suits for mismanagement. That's what was on his mind. He has to protect stockholder value, and it's not a matter of something he wants to do. It is an absolute statutory requirement. Okay, that's enough for me.